3 years into a business-made marriage, Willow finally asked me to do something she'd never done before, attend a party in her place. She said she was stuck working late, and I didn't question it. I dressed up, smiled through the evening, and waited like a fool for the wife who never showed. Outside, the drizzle had started, soft and cold, as the guests slowly disappeared into the night. I tried calling, no answer. My last message still sat there on WeChat. The event ends in 10 minutes. "Where are you?" Someone offered me a ride home. I smiled, said she was probably caught in traffic. But inside, anger was simmering, quiet, steady, familiar. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from Willow, still working. "Call a cab." I didn't reply. I just laughed under my breath. Somehow I already knew. The night air cooled my head a little. Then came another message, this time from David, my oldest friend. "Guess where I am right now, idiot?" I told him to quit messing around. He didn't listen. Instead, he sent me a video. Dim lights, crystal glasses, soft music, and there she was. My wife, Willow, smiling in a way she hadn't in years, sitting across from a man whose face I recognized even through the haze of candlelight. Makoto, her first love, the one who owned every piece of her youth. David's voice came through the clip, amused and careless. "Didn't expect Makoto to be back, huh? Heard he landed tonight." And just like that, everything clicked. The overtime. The excuses. The way she said she'd pick me up and didn't. True love was back in town, and I was just the placeholder she'd married. I told David to get me 2 clear photos. When I got them, I forwarded them straight to Willow. No caption, no question, no anger. Just silence. Because what was left to say? Our marriage had always been a deal, not a dream. Families called it a perfect match, the Wangs and the Lius joining forces. She had her career. I had my company. We lived together but never touched the same world. She called it freedom. I called it empty. That night I went home alone. The house was dark, the air still. I poured myself a glass of cold water, let it burn down my throat, and listened to the rain gathering strength outside. When her message came, "The rain's too heavy, I might not make it back tonight," I didn't even feel the sting. It was almost funny. Lies sound different once your heart stops caring. I turned off my phone and let the storm rage without me. The next morning, just after dawn, the front door creaked open. She was back. 5 a.m., disheveled, tired, smelling of rain and someone else's world. She stood at the foot of my bed, watching me, silent. Then she tugged at my blanket. "It's bad to sleep with your head covered," she said softly, her voice flat, rehearsed. I cracked one eye open, muttered "crazy," and turned my back to her. She looked worn out, her eyes dark and hollow. Still in yesterday's clothes? Still pretending nothing had happened. And in that moment I realized, whatever we were before, we weren't that anymore. She hadn't expected me to react that way. For a second, she just stood there, lost for words, before mumbling something about fixing my blanket and retreating from the room like a guest who didn't belong there anymore. When I woke up, sunlight had already spilled through the curtains. Willow was in the living room, dressed in soft loungewear, quietly eating breakfast. She looked calm, too calm, as if the night before had never happened. I sat across from her, the chair scraping lightly against the floor. "Don't you want to explain what happened last night?" She froze mid-motion, spoon hovering above her bowl, then finally met my eyes. "Makoto just came back," she said evenly. "We haven't seen each other in years. It was just dinner. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to make things complicated." I tilted my head, watching her. "And the hotel?" Her eyes flickered with irritation. "George, don't say things like that." "Once the rain stops, I'll go back." I took a slow sip of water, my expression unreadable. "All right, got it." That was it. No shouting, no accusations, no pleading. Just quiet acceptance. And that silence, it threw her off more than any argument could have. Willow stared at me, searching for something in my face. Anger, jealousy, pain, anything. But there was nothing left to find. I spread jam on my toast with steady hands like a man whose world hadn't just cracked in half. "You don't have anything else to say?" she finally asked, voice trembling with uncertainty. I looked up, gave her a faint, polite smile. "Say what?" "Should I wish you a pleasant meal?" The words hit harder than yelling ever could. She blinked, lips parted, but no sound came out. Then she looked down, quietly stirring her porridge, pretending to be fine. From that morning on, something subtle but irreversible shifted between us. I stopped waiting for her. If work ran late, I'd eat at the office or hit the gym. By the time I came home, the lights in our apartment were already dim, the air heavy with silence. At first, Willow tried to keep up the routine. Every evening around 7, she'd text, "Are you coming home for dinner?" I'd reply hours later, short and distant, "Busy, you eat first." Eventually, she stopped asking. Weekends, I couldn't stand being home anymore, so I called David. When I arrived at the place he sent me, 2 girls in JK uniforms rushed up and greeted me in unison. "Hello, George!" I blinked. "Do we know each other?" They just smiled and each grabbed one of my arms, pressing close enough to make me uncomfortable. "Don't worry, handsome. We're here to pick you up. Mr. David sent us." I sighed. Of course he did. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from David, who had his own pair of girls clinging to him like accessories. He looked smug, cigarette in hand. "So?" he grinned. "Like the arrangement?" "Don't worry, they're all adults." I shot him a look. "You've completely lost it. What is this, a circus?" People were already staring, some whispering, some judging, others just jealous. David didn't care. He exhaled a lazy smoke ring. "Come on, man. You've been in a funk. I figured some company might cheer you up. Life's short. Willow crossed the line, right? Why can't you?" I leaned back, half amused, half annoyed. "You're insane. Next time, pick a place with private rooms." David laughed. "Hey, I told you to stay single with me, but no, you had to get married. Look at me now. Been through the flowers and not a single petal sticks." I snorted, grabbing a piece of pumpkin pie. "You mean your mom still scares the life out of you? She'd break your legs if she saw this." "She won't. She's too busy babysitting my brother's new kid." And then mid-sentence, he stopped talking. His eyes flicked toward the entrance. I followed his gaze and froze. Makoto, dressed in a suit, polished, calm. And behind him, Willow, in a beige trench coat that made her look like a stranger. Her expression was cold, distant, practiced. The waiter led them to a booth diagonally across from ours. Makoto pulled out her chair, always the gentleman. She nodded faintly before sitting down, her profile turned just enough for me to see her face. David let out a low whistle. "Well," he murmured, leaning back. "Didn't expect tonight to get interesting." And all I could do was watch her. The woman who once shared my home, now laughing quietly across from another man, like she used to with me. David's mouth dropped open, the peanut he was holding tumbling back into the bowl. He mouthed, "What the hell? What kind of fate is this?" I stayed still, tea halfway to my lips before muttering, "What's there to look at?" "Eat your food." The energy at our table shifted instantly. The 2 girls beside me, who'd been all smiles and giggles a minute ago, straightened up, their laughter fading into awkward silence. Even David, who was usually the loudest man in any room, went quiet. His eyes flicked nervously between us and the booth across the way, waiting for something to explode. But I didn't give him a show. I just kept eating, slow and steady, pretending the world hadn't just twisted into irony right in front of me. I hadn't expected to run into them today, Willow and her old flame. Maybe David was right. Maybe fate really did have a dark sense of humor. "Tsk," David whispered, leaning closer. "Want me to go over and say hello?" Without even looking up, I said flatly, "Are you an idiot?" "Eat." And then she looked over. Willow's head turned in our direction, her eyes scanning the scene. First, she caught sight of David, with his cigarette and his smug entourage. A flicker of disgust passed across her face. Then her gaze found me. For a heartbeat, the restaurant fell silent. The clatter of dishes, the chatter of diners, all of it just faded away. Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed, studying me the way someone studies a stranger they used to know. Her gaze drifted slowly to the 2 girls beside me. The faintest crease appeared between her brows. By the time she looked back up, her expression had hardened into something cold and sharp, like ice catching light. I didn't look away. I met her stare head-on, and even let a small, unreadable smile tug at the corner of my mouth. She was the first to break eye contact. Willow turned back to Makoto, saying something softly. He followed her gaze, spotted me, and froze for half a second before forcing a polite nod. I gave him one back, a lazy half-smile that said nothing at all. David muttered under his breath, "How does he still have the nerve to smile?" "Eat," I said again, voice flat as I picked up another piece of pork rib. But the mood had already changed. The air around our table had turned heavier. Even the girls, sensing the tension, kept their eyes on their plates. Across from us, I could hear faint pieces of conversation, Makoto's calm tone, Willow's soft laugh. They looked comfortable, like this was exactly where she wanted to be. I finished my meal quickly. "Let's go," I said, tossing the napkin aside. As we walked out, I passed their table without so much as a glance. David, of course, lagged behind, giving them one last smirk before following me out. The sunlight outside was too bright, the kind that makes everything feel harsher than it should. David lit a cigarette, squinting at the sky. Damn, what bad luck. Of all people, we run into them. "George, you can really stand this?" I smiled faintly, not the kind that reaches your eyes. "What do you want me to do, flip the table?" "It's just a business marriage," I said, shrugging it off. "We're business partners, nothing more. As long as she doesn't embarrass the families, she can do whatever makes her happy." David blew out smoke, scowling. "Want me to help you file for divorce? You've got that prenup. She cheats, she gets nothing. I'll even call a private investigator." "Better not," I said, half laughing. "You'd probably land us both in jail." I patted his shoulder. "And next time you want to pull one of your stunts, at least pick somewhere private." Then I walked off toward my car, leaving him standing in the sunlight, scratching his head like a kid caught doing something stupid. When I got home, Willow was already there. She just hung up her coat when our eyes met. I slipped off my shoes, not planning to say a word, and headed for the bedroom. "George," she called. I stopped and turned, keeping my expression neutral. "What is it?" Her gaze searched me, irritation flickering just beneath the surface. "Aren't you going to explain anything?" I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Explain what?" "I just had dinner with David. Don't overthink it." The words were almost an echo, her own excuse thrown right back at her. Her face darkened. "Makoto and I are just friends catching up." "But those girls you were with?" That didn't look innocent. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I see. So it's fine for you to have dinner with your ex, but I can't share a meal with a friend. You call that fair?" "George, we need to talk." Her voice cracked slightly, a mix of guilt and pride. "Makoto just came back. He doesn't know much about the market here. I was just giving him advice, that's all." I nodded slowly. I believe you." She blinked, thrown off. So nothing. You don't have to worry." "I'm not playing games, Willow." I gave her a tired smile. "I've just finally figured things out." And the way her expression faltered, confusion melting into fear, told me she knew exactly what that meant. That night, sleep barely touched me. Half awake, I thought I heard the master bedroom door creak open, close, then open again. Soft footsteps pacing the hallway like hesitation made flesh. I didn't have to look. I knew it was Willow. The days that followed felt like winter. A quiet, stubborn war. No shouting, just distance. One afternoon, I came home to see her dragging a small suitcase, her face unreadable as she drove off. No words, no goodbye. That night, my phone buzzed, a message from her. "Busy with work. Staying at my parents' for a few days. Easier to work overtime." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing one word. "Okay." The screen flickered. The other party is typing. Then nothing. The silence between us deepened, heavy enough to feel in the air. So I buried myself in work. Even my calls with David became rare. Until one evening he rang, laughter and music roaring behind him. "Where are you, man?" "Got a party tonight." "Real company, girls from the art school. Fresh, elegant. Working overtime," I cut in. "You? Working overtime? Since when?" I smiled faintly. "Project's important. Maybe next time." There was a pause. Then softer. "All right, take care of yourself." After he hung up, I leaned back, the office dim except for the glow of my desk lamp. Then the internal line buzzed. My assistant's voice came through. "Mr. Wong, a Mr. Makoto Ito is here to see you." "No appointment." "Makoto Ito." I hesitated. "Send him in." He entered, sharp as ever. Tailored suit, that polished smile that never cracked. "Mr. Wang, sorry to drop in unannounced," he said smoothly. "What brings you here?" "Oh, nothing urgent. I just met with Willow nearby and thought I'd stop by. After all, we're alumni." The word Willow rolled too easily off his tongue. I leaned back, eyebrows raised. "You just met with my wife?" He smiled. "We're just friends." The air in the room turned still. "Actually," he continued, "I came on Willow's behalf. She's strong-willed, doesn't always know when to step back. In marriage, someone has to yield first." I gave a small, humorless laugh. "And as her ex, you think you're the right man to tell me that?" He stood, that polished confidence starting to crack. "Mr. Wang, please don't misunderstand. I only want to help." "That won't be necessary," I said, pressing the intercom. "Show him out." He left, and I watched from the window as he stood on the curb below, talking on his phone before hailing a cab. By evening, I drove home. The garage was half empty, her car still gone. I loosened my tie, ready for silence again. Until I saw her. Willow sat on the couch, waiting, face calm but voice steady. "George, we need to talk." I sat across from her. "Talk about what?" "Did Makoto come to see you today?" So she knew. Of course she did. "Yeah," I said lightly. "Your ex was kind enough to drop by. Even brought fruit." Her brows furrowed. "What did you two talk about?" "Oh, nothing much," I said, leaning back. "Just that your ex seems impatient. Asked when I plan to divorce you." Her face drained of color.
"George, that's not true."
"How could you say that?" "Believe it or not," I murmured. "He even said I should be generous, let you find your second spring." Her voice shook. "Makoto would never what?" I cut her off. "He also told me the one who isn't loved is the third party. That the night he came back, you went to see him, and that was proof enough. Said you'd run to him any time he called." I gave a faint, bitter smile. "Didn't know your ex still had such pull even now." "No wonder," I said, my voice calm but cutting. "After 3 years of marriage, you've never really warmed up to me." The realization hit like a bitter truth I'd known all along. "Turns out you and Makoto never really cut ties, did you?" I let out a dry laugh, the kind that carried more pain than humor. "I just don't get it. If you two were so in love, why end it in the first place? Was divorce just another thrill? Or did your ex finally get bored and decide to come back for a rerun?" The words spilled out faster, sharper, each one a blade. Willow's face drained of color, her lips trembling as she tried to speak, but I didn't stop. I kept going until the last bitter word left my mouth and the room fell into silence. All that was left was her uneven breathing, a sound caught between rage and heartbreak. You're lying." Her voice shook as she stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "George, are you out of your mind? Makoto would never say those things." "You're slandering him!" "Slandering?" I sneered. "Believe whatever you want. The words are out there. Whether you trust them or not, that's on you. Maybe call your old friend right now. Ask him if he's still playing the hero." She looked at me with disbelief, eyes wide, searching for something, anything real in my face. But all she found was the cold smirk of a man too tired to care. Her chest rose with a shaky breath. She grabbed her handbag from the couch and hissed, "You're impossible!" The sound of her heels echoed across the room, sharp, furious, final. The door slammed behind her, the noise slicing through the quiet like a crack of thunder. I didn't move. Just walked to the bar, poured a drink, and listened to the clink of ice hitting glass. The sound felt louder than the silence she left behind. That night, Willow didn't come back. And just like that, we'd slipped into a strange kind of standoff. Two people pretending the other didn't exist. When relatives asked in the family chat, I played along. "Big project," I said. "Working late." "Staying with her parents." She stayed quiet. No denial, no explanation. Just silence. David called a few times, his tone softer than usual. "George, why are you doing this to yourself?" "Let me come over, we'll have a drink." "It's fine," I said lightly. "Just busy." Outside, the sky was the color of lead. I could smell rain coming. A week later, I attended an industry summit, the kind of event where couples were expected to show up together. I went alone. By some cruel twist, they'd seated me and Willow at the same table. She'd come with Makoto. She wore a silver gown, elegant and distant, while he stood beside her like he owned the night. The air around the table turned heavy. Willow caught my eye, then immediately looked away, trying to change seats. But Makoto, ever the gentleman, smiled and pulled out her chair. "Sit here," he said softly. "Better view." I scoffed quietly and took my seat. Halfway through dinner, the waiters brought out soup. Willow lifted her spoon, then suddenly covered her mouth. A faint gag, barely a sound, but enough to stop the table cold. Makoto leaned in, all concern and perfect timing. "Are you okay? You've been overworked lately." His hand brushed her back, gentle, protective, too familiar. Someone at the table chuckled awkwardly. "Miss Liu, is there good news?" "Congratulations, Mr. Wang." I froze. "Congratulations?" I set my chopsticks down and dabbed my lips with a napkin. My voice came out low, calm, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Is that so? Well, maybe we should find out if it's just a bad stomach, or if there's actually a reason to celebrate. The silence was immediate. I looked straight at Makoto, his smile frozen in place. After all, I said, pausing just long enough for the sting to land, we wouldn't want to confuse indigestion with pregnancy. Every face around the table turned pale. The boss who had spoken first looked like he wanted to disappear. I stood, tugging at my tie, forcing a polite smile. Excuse me. I'm not feeling well. Please enjoy the meal. The whispers started before I reached the door. I didn't look back. In the car, my phone buzzed again and again, Willow's name flashing like an alarm. I muted it. Started the engine. Then at the intersection, I saw her, standing there in that silver dress, trembling in the wind. She saw my headlights and ran forward, stopping right in front of the car. I hit the brakes hard. She pounded on the window, desperate. George, get out. We need to talk. I rolled the window down halfway. My voice was ice. Talk about what? Her face was pale, eyes red. What was that stunt at dinner? Did I say anything wrong? I asked. You can't really be pregnant. Can you? Her breath caught. I leaned back almost casually. Because I've been post-vasectomy for nearly a year now. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the pavement with a sharp crack. She stared at me like the ground had vanished beneath her feet. Her voice broke. Is that true? When did you... Vasectomy? I interrupted. Yeah, it's true. She shook her head, dazed. No, that's impossible. You couldn't have... Her voice trailed off, disbelief clouding her eyes. Then suddenly she looked up, wild, desperate, like someone who'd just realized the ground beneath her was never solid to begin with. That joke's not funny, Willow said, her voice trembling. I stopped smiling. My eyes turned cold. I'm not joking, I said quietly, so what are you going to do about the bastard child in your belly? Her lips parted, disbelief written all over her face. Bastard child? She repeated, her voice cracking under the weight of those words. George, do you even hear yourself right now? I said. I leaned closer, my tone flat and almost cruel. The child in your belly is a bastard. I even smiled as I said it, a small, twisted thing that felt like poison. You're lying, she finally managed, her voice breaking through the shock. I'm not pregnant. And how could I be? As my husband, you went and got a vasectomy, behind my back, so without even telling me. For a moment, I just looked at her. The fury in her eyes, the confusion, the heartbreak. And all I felt was exhaustion. This endless cycle of hurting each other. It didn't feel like victory anymore. Just emptiness. If you're not pregnant, I said coldly, gripping the steering wheel, then go prove it. Get checked. I started the car. Move aside, Willow. I'm leaving. She didn't stop me. She just stood there, frozen, staring at the car like she didn't recognize the man behind the wheel anymore. I rolled up the window, shutting out her voice, her eyes, everything. Then I hit the gas. The car roared forward, leaving her behind in the rearview mirror. The next day, the phone rang. David again. His voice was too loud, too excited. Bro, you won't believe who I just saw, outside the gynecology clinic. Willow! I paused, wine glass halfway to my lips. And what was she doing there? I don't know, man. She looked pale, totally out of it. Almost walked into the door on her way out. You think... He laughed. You think she's pregnant? With your kid? None of my business, I said. What if it is yours? He pushed, teasing. You're an ass, but I still believe in your... fertility skills. Go to hell, I muttered, hanging up. But his words stuck like splinters. Gynecology clinic. The last time Willow and I had slept together. 2 months ago. Could it be? No. I tried to shake the thought off, but it wouldn't leave. The days dragged on quietly. No calls from Willow. No messages. I buried myself in work, but that gnawing unease sat just beneath the surface. Something sour, restless. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my mother-in-law. George, she said warmly, come over for dinner tonight. Your father-in-law caught a big fish and insists on cooking it himself. I rubbed my temples. Mom, I might not make it tonight. I've got work. What's more important than family? She scolded gently. You haven't visited in ages, and Willow's been back home for days now. You two should talk, I sighed. There was no escaping that tone. All right, I'll come. That evening, I pulled up to the Liu family villa, straightened my tie, and forced a polite smile before walking in. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. Not just Willow's parents, but mine were there too. 4 elders all seated in a circle, waiting. And Willow, she sat apart on a single sofa, head down, clutching a glass of water like it was her anchor. Her knuckles were white. She didn't look up. My stomach dropped. This wasn't dinner. This was a tribunal. I greeted everyone, trying to sound normal. "George, you're here," my mother-in-law said with a strained smile. "Sit down. We've been waiting." The table was full of food, the big fish steaming at the center. Her husband laughed about how heavy it was. My mother-in-law made small talk about the weather, the news, anything to keep the mood from cracking. But the silence underneath it all was suffocating. Then the clink of porcelain. My mother set down her teacup. "George," she said quietly, her voice tight, "we called you here to ask what's really going on between you and Willow." Here it was. I didn't answer. I just took a slow sip of tea, waiting. My mother-in-law sighed. "George, Willow told us about the vasectomy. Is it true?" Her words hung heavy in the air. I looked at Willow. She finally lifted her head. Our eyes met. The anger that used to live there was gone, replaced by something worse. Exhaustion, sadness, defeat. "George," my father said, voice firm, "answer your mother. How could you make such a decision without telling anyone? Do you even care about this marriage anymore?" The accusations came one after another, each one heavier than the last. My parents' disappointment. My in-laws' disbelief. Willow sat in silence, her shoulders trembling slightly, waiting. I let out a slow breath, set my teacup down, and leaned back. The room felt smaller somehow, every gaze pressing down on me. Finally, I looked around the table, my eyes landing on Willow's pale profile. "So," I said softly, almost to myself, "this is what we've all gathered for tonight." He finally spoke, his voice low, but the words hit the quiet dining room like a thunderclap. I lied to her. The silence stretched. His mother froze mid-breath. Willow's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face as she rose from her chair. "What?" she whispered. George gave a bitter smile, the kind that hurts more than it hides. "The vasectomy. It wasn't real. I made it up, just to make her angry." The words hung heavy like smoke after a fire. For a moment, no one moved. Then Willow's voice cracked through the stillness, shaky, raw. "What did you say?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "I didn't have a vasectomy. I lied." Bang! His mother's hand slammed the table. "George, do you even hear yourself? You can't just know what." He cut her off, his tone tight with exhaustion. "Maybe you should ask Willow why she felt guilty enough to go to a gynecologist. Isn't it obvious?" He turned toward Willow, his words turning sharp, slicing through the air. "Her ex shows up, she lies to me, says she's working late. She meets him till midnight, hides behind excuses. Then she drags him into my circle and tells me they're just friends." "No!" Willow's voice cracked as she stood, trembling. Her tears came all at once, raw and unstoppable. "I went to the hospital because I thought you really had a vasectomy." The room froze. Every pair of eyes swung to her. "I'm not pregnant," she cried, pulling a folded paper from her bag and slapping it on the table. "This is the report." But I was scared, terrified. What if I got pregnant and you really couldn't have children anymore? What would that mean? What would people say? I had to know. Her words broke apart, her sobs choking her breath. I even asked the doctor if it was reversible. She said it was dangerous, that it could mean never having kids again. Her makeup was ruined, her voice trembling with heartbreak. Around the table, parents stood in stunned silence, torn between anger and pity. Her mother wrapped her arms around her, whispering her name. "George," Willow gasped between sobs. "I wasn't even angry about it. I was worried. I thought about our future, about us. But you turned it into a weapon." George sat still, silent. And for the first time that night, the fury in him began to settle, replaced by something heavier, quieter. "Yes," he finally said, "it was wrong. But maybe ask yourself, then why did I lie?" He leaned forward, his voice cold, deliberate. "The day your ex came back, you said you were working late. But you were out with him till midnight. You skipped coming home because of the rain. You went to parties with him. You brought him around my friends like it was nothing. And now he's showing up at my company, giving me lectures on how to treat my own wife. Each word hit harder than the last. Willow's face grew pale, her body trembling. Even a clay statue breaks if you push it hard enough, he said softly. What did you expect me to do, Willow? The room fell silent again, the kind of silence that felt permanent. Their parents exchanged glances, the anger fading into realization. This wasn't about a lie anymore. It was years of distance, suspicion, pride, finally collapsing. Willow wiped her tears, her voice trembling but steadier than before. Yes, I crossed lines. I met Makoto too often. I hurt you. But I never betrayed you, George. Never. Her words cracked in the air, fragile but true. He just came back and needed help. I thought I was being kind. I didn't think I was breaking something. She looked at him, the exhaustion in her eyes mirroring his own. Maybe I was wrong, but I never stopped believing in us. George exhaled slowly, his voice quieter now, more tired than angry. 3 years, Willow, he murmured. 3 years of trying to get close to you, and you kept shutting me out. And when he came back, suddenly you had time. You had warmth. He looked away, his words fading like the last light of a storm. Don't blame me for lying. You were already halfway gone. And in that moment, no one spoke. Not the parents. Not even the house that had seen their laughter once. Only silence. And 2 people staring across a table, realizing what love had turned them into. This was a mess only we could clean up, and maybe we never really would. George, you're such a bastard. Willow's voice trembled, but her words cut sharp. She didn't even look at me again. Instead, she turned to our parents, bowed deeply, and said quietly, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry you had to see this. I can't stay for dinner. No one moved. Her heels clicked against the floor, a sound that grew fainter as she climbed the stairs. My mother-in-law started to rise, but her husband caught her wrist and shook his head, silently telling her to let Willow go. My father sighed, rubbing his forehead. George. He wanted to say something more, but the words never came, only another heavy exhale. I loosened my tie, stood up, and said simply, I'll leave now. No one stopped me. Outside, the night was cool and quiet, the kind of silence that felt like a punishment. I inhaled, trying to clear the fog in my head. My phone buzzed. David. How'd it go tonight? He asked, voice casual. My parents were there too. So, did you 2 make up? I don't know. It's complicated. Shit. Want to grab a drink? I'm not going. I just need sleep. I hung up, but my hand stayed still on the steering wheel. All I could see was her face from earlier, pale, tired, hurt. There was something tight in my chest. Regret, maybe, or anger at myself, or her. I couldn't tell. And then came the bitterness, more sharp, familiar. Why is it that she can run to her ex, but somehow I'm the villain in this story? The next few days passed like nothing had happened. Work, home, repeat, no texts. No calls, not even her shadow at the door. Then Friday came. I was reviewing some files when the intercom buzzed. My assistant's voice was uneasy. Mr. Wang, Mr. Makoto is here again. He says it's urgent. Of course he was, I sighed. Let him in. Makoto walked in, not in his usual tailored suit this time, but casual clothes that did nothing to hide how wrecked he looked. He planted both hands on my desk, his tone almost shaking with anger. George, what did you say to Willow? I leaned back in my chair, spinning a pen between my fingers. Mr. Ito, is that really the tone you want to use? He exhaled, trying to calm himself. She blocked me. Every contact. I went to her office and she wouldn't see me. We've been friends for years and now she's treating me like a stranger because of something you told her. I laughed softly, no humor in it. Oh, that? I just repeated your own words about me divorcing her so you could take my place. Or did I misremember? His expression shifted, first disbelief, then fury. You're lying! I never said that. Maybe, I said, shrugging. But does it really matter now? She doesn't want to see you. And now you're here embarrassing yourself in my office. His hands tightened into fists. Don't be so smug, George. She's just confused right now. She'll see the truth soon enough. I stood, facing him across the desk. You're in your 30s, Makoto. Don't you think this is a little pathetic? She's my wife. His face twisted, somewhere between guilt and rage. I walked around the desk, clapped him on the shoulder like an old friend. Here's some advice, I said quietly. Don't chase another man's wife. It's not just immoral. It's desperate. I leaned closer. And maybe she blocked you not because of me, but because she finally realized what you really are. Makoto shoved me, eyes burning. I didn't flinch. Show Mr. Ito out, I said calmly into the intercom. He was escorted out, just like that. When I got home that night, I noticed something strange. The hallway light was on. I froze. Willow was there, sitting on the sofa in her loungewear, her damp hair falling over her shoulders. The TV was on, but the screen was dark. She didn't look at me. I changed my shoes quietly, walked past her into the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. I moved back in, she said suddenly, her voice flat. I turned, leaning against the doorway. She finally met my eyes. They were swollen but calm, too calm. Did Makoto come to see you today? Yeah. What did he say? Nothing new. I took a sip, pretending it didn't matter. He said I ruined things for him, that I should step aside. I told him not to chase married women. He said it makes the game more exciting when the goalkeeper scores. I gave a dry laugh. Can you believe that? What a joke. Some gentleman he turned out to be. Willow's face darkened, the calm cracking slightly. But she didn't explode this time. Her fingers just tightened around the fabric of her pants. Did he really say that? She asked, her tone unreadable. Does it matter? I shot back. Then softer. You blocked him, didn't you? She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, a pause. Then she added quietly, I told him that from now on it's just work. Strictly professional. No more private meetings. Her voice trailed off, a line that sounded like peace but carried the weight of surrender. It felt like an explanation, or maybe an apology wrapped in logic. But the dull ache in my chest didn't fade. Trust, I realized, is like a sheet of paper. Once it's creased, you can smooth it out, but it never looks the same again. Do whatever you want, I muttered, reaching for the remote and switching on the TV. The monotone voice of the business news anchor filled the silence, echoing through the room like background noise in a life that had gone still. But the sound didn't help. It only made the emptiness feel heavier, as if we'd hit reset on our lives, except this time, the warmth was gone. Even when we shared the same bed, it felt like there was a canyon between us, invisible but deep. Time dragged on, dull and unkind. A month slipped by. David, perhaps sensing something he shouldn't cross, stopped inviting me out. He only sent me memes, jokes, short voice notes, the kind of small talk that filled silence but never touched truth. Willow, on the other hand, no longer mentioned Makoto. She started coming home earlier, canceled some of her usual social dinners, and sometimes even tried to start conversations about a new project at work, a restaurant she'd seen online, or a news story she thought I might like. I answered briefly. Sounds nice. Okay. And then the air would thicken again, heavy with unspoken things neither of us dared to say. We both knew that the crack between us couldn't be repaired by pretending it wasn't there. No matter how many quiet nights passed, the distance stayed, polite, suffocating, and permanent. We were still husband and wife, by law, by name, by the expectations of our families, but emotionally, it felt like two strangers bound together by duty, appearances, and a fragile kind of resignation neither of us could shake. Outside, the rain that had been falling all evening finally began to ease. I found myself staring out the window. The rain stopped, I said quietly. Willow followed my gaze, then murmured, After a pause, she added softly, Dad asked me yesterday, when we're planning to have kids. Her tone was almost casual, but her fingers tightened around her glass. I turned toward her. And what did you tell him? She let out a small, wry laugh, not bitter, just tired. I said, whenever it happens. She looked down at her hands. He seemed a little disappointed. I didn't reply. My phone screen lit up with a new message from David, a business card he'd forwarded, nothing important. I scrolled past it, pretending to read. George, Willow said after a long silence. Her voice was quiet, uncertain. When I looked up, her eyes held that same complicated mix of guilt, loneliness, and something that looked a lot like defeat. Are we... She hesitated. Just going to stay like this? Her question wasn't clear, but it didn't need to be. We both understood. I stared out at the city skyline, where neon lights blurred against the glass like distant constellations. For a long time, I didn't speak. I don't know, I finally said. The light in her eyes dimmed, a soft flicker, like a candle losing its flame. She didn't say anything after that. She just stood up, turned toward the bedroom, and walked away. Halfway down the hall, she paused. Her voice floated back, faint and restrained. Flight's Monday, 9 a.m. No need to see me off. A beat of silence, then she added, almost as an afterthought, just a 2-day business trip. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was left sitting there, the TV still murmuring about market trends, the rain clouds fading outside, wondering when exactly our marriage had stopped feeling like home and started feeling like an arrangement we were both too tired to leave.